The only human mechanic. Sarah Chen stared at her reflection in the polished surface of Nexus 7's central maintenance corridor, adjusting her standard-issue engineering vest. The irony wasn't lost on her. The only human engineer on the most advanced space station in the Galactic Alliance, wearing a uniform designed for species with considerably more limbs than her mere 2 arms. The station's morning shift was beginning, and the corridor filled with the usual array of beings. Towering Arctians with their crystalline bodies, floating Medusan engineers trailing tentacles of pure energy, and the insectoid Vex with their precisely calculated movements. Sarah stood barely shoulder height to most of them, a fact they never failed to notice. Engineer Chen, your presence is required in Section 7 Alpha. The station's AI announced, its tone carrying the slight condescension she'd grown accustomed to. Even the artificial intelligences on Nexus 7 seemed to share the prevailing view that humans were, at best, quaint primitives playing with technology they barely understood. As Sarah made her way through the station's winding corridors, the familiar hum of the quantum drives suddenly faltered. It was subtle, the kind of change most of the station's inhabitants wouldn't notice, but Sarah had spent countless hours in these halls, learning every sound, every vibration. Something was wrong. Her comm unit chimed. Chen, we're detecting anomalies in the primary coolant systems. Chief Engineer Kethrix's mandibles clicked with irritation. Though I'm sure our advanced diagnostic systems will resolve the issue momentarily. Sarah checked her handheld scanner, frowning at the readings. With respect, Chief, I'm seeing pattern irregularities that don't match standard system fluctuations. Request permission to perform a manual inspection. The silence that followed spoke volumes. Kethrix, like most Vex, believed in the superiority of their automated systems. Manual inspection was considered primitive. Granted, Kethrix finally responded, though I fail to see what your organic senses could detect that our quantum sensors cannot. Sarah was already moving, her boots clicking against the deck plates as she approached the maintenance access. The panel, designed for the larger Arxian engineers, opened to reveal a cramped tunnel of conduits and power lines. As she studied the entrance, a realization struck her. None of the other engineering species could physically fit through this space. Chief, she keyed her comm. I believe I know why I was assigned to this station. These maintenance tunnels, they're too small for anyone else on the engineering team. An interesting observation. Kethrix responded, the faintest trace of discomfort in his tone. Though surely our maintenance drones. The station shuddered, and warning lights flashed along the corridor. Sarah didn't wait for permission. She ducked into the tunnel, her human-sized frame allowing her to move quickly through spaces that would have trapped or crushed her alien colleagues. The deeper she went, the more her suspicions grew. The coolant system's irregularities weren't random. They followed a pattern she recognized from her studies of ancient Earth computing systems. It was the kind of pattern that the station's advanced AI might miss, precisely because it was so primitive. Chief, she called out, her voice steady despite the growing urgency. I'm seeing signs of deliberate interference. These systems aren't failing. They're being sabotaged. And whoever's doing it is using techniques so old they're practically archaeological. Impossible. Kethrix clicked. Our security systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. No modern technology cold. That's just it, Sarah interrupted, reaching a junction where several crucial systems converged. They're not using modern technology. They're using principles so basic, so primitive, that your advanced systems see them as background noise. She pulled out her toolkit, not the standard issue quantum diagnostic set, but her own collection of primitive tools that had earned her so many condescending looks. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Chen, Kethrix's voice had lost its usual superiority. What exactly are you suggesting? Sarah's fingers traced along a series of connections, following her instincts. I'm suggesting, Chief, that someone is using humanity's primitive past to bring down your advanced future. And I think I might be the only one who can stop them. The lights flickered, and deep within the station's core, something ancient began to wake up. Sarah Chen, the token human on Humanit's most advanced space station, allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes being primitive had its advantages. As she prepared to delve deeper into the station's troubled systems, Sarah couldn't help but wonder. Had she been hired despite being human, or precisely because she was human? Either way, she was about to prove that humanity's primitive understanding of engineering might be exactly what this advanced station needed to survive. The station shuddered again, more violently this time, and Sarah opened her battered toolkit. It was time to show the galaxy that sometimes the old ways were the best ways, and that being human wasn't a disadvantage. It was her greatest strength. Small spaces, big problems. The maintenance tunnel grew narrower as Sarah pushed deeper into Nexus 7's infrastructure. Sweat beaded on her forehead, not from exertion, but from the rising heat. The coolant systems were failing faster than predicted, and the station's ambient temperature had climbed 3 degrees in the last hour. "Status report, Chen," Kithrix demanded through the comm. In the background, she could hear the chaos erupting in engineering control. The clicking of Vex mandibles, the crystalline chiming of agitated archons, and the electric crackle of Medusan arguments. "The sabotage is more extensive than we thought," Sarah replied, pausing to examine a junction box. Its quantum circuits had been modified, but not with any technology she recognized. "Someone's been in these tunnels before me, Chief. Someone small." "Impossible," Kithrix clicked. "These maintenance paths haven't been accessed in," calculating, 73 cycles. Sarah ran her fingers along the modified circuits. "Then your logs are wrong. These modifications are recent, but they're using technology that's ancient. I'm seeing components that look like they're from Earth's early space age." The silence that followed was broken by another station-wide shudder. Warning klaxons began to sound, their pitch designed for alien ears and particularly grating to human ones. "Multiple systems are failing," a Medusan engineer reported, their energy tentacles flickering with distress. "The quantum core is showing signs of destabilization. At this rate, we have less than 3 hours before catastrophic failure." Sarah pulled her ancient multimeter from her toolkit. The quantum diagnostics might miss old tech modifications, but sometimes the simplest tools were the most reliable. "Chief, I need you to shut down power to Section 7 Beta. I have a theory, but I need to test it without interference from the main systems." "Shut down a whole section." Thrix's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "The regulatory protocols alone would take hours to." "We don't have hours," Sarah interrupted. "Your advanced systems are failing because they're being attacked by something they don't understand. Something primitive. Something human." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Sarah could almost feel the collective disbelief of the alien engineering team. Humans were newcomers to the galactic community, their technology considered crude and inefficient. The idea that human technology could threaten Nexus 7 was almost insulting. "Do it," a new voice commanded. Station Director Zixtal, their crystalline form probably gleaming with stress fractures by now. "Give Engineer Chen what she needs." The lights in the section died, leaving Sarah in darkness broken only by her helmet lamp. Her multimeter came to life, its simple LED display showing readings that confirmed her suspicions. "Just as I thought," she muttered, tracing the power flow. "They're using our own assumptions against us." The saboteur knew that advanced alien tech would never consider looking for simple electrical circuits. It's hiding in plain sight. She followed the unauthorized power draw to a small access panel. Inside, she found something that made her breath catch. A crude but effective computer system, built from what looked like salvage Earth technology from the 21st century. "Chief, I found something." The saboteur isn't just using old tech, they're using it to create a backdoor into your quantum systems. It's like using a stone axe to break into a secure facility. Your sensors are designed to detect energy weapons, not primitive tools. "But why?" Kithrix demanded. Who would use such primitive methods? Sarah's hand brushed against something else in the access panel, a small data chip, the kind that had been obsolete on Earth for centuries. I don't think this is about destroying the station, she said slowly. I think someone's trying to send us a message. The real question is, why go to all this trouble to make sure only a human could find it? The station's lights flickered again, and Sarah felt a subtle change in the air pressure. More systems were failing, but now she understood why. The saboteur hadn't just created a problem. They'd created a problem that only a human could solve. Director, she keyed her comm. I need every scrap of information you have about the station's construction. Specifically, I need to know if any humans were involved in building these maintenance tunnels. That's classified information, Zixtel began, but Sarah cut them off. With respect, Director, in less than 3 hours, this station will be a cloud of very classified debris if we don't figure out why someone went to so much trouble to ensure that only a human engineer would find this. As she waited for a response, Sarah studied the crude computer system. It was elegant in its simplicity, a reminder that sometimes the oldest solutions were the most reliable. She couldn't help but smile at the irony. The most advanced space station in the galaxy, brought to its knees by technology that belonged in a museum. Human intuition. The construction records are unlocked, Director Zixtal announced, their crystalline form casting prismatic shadows across the emergency displays. 30 years ago, a human engineering team assisted in designing these maintenance tunnels. They were consultants. Sarah processed this information as she studied the ancient data chip. The quantum drives hummed ominously in the background, their usual smooth resonance now stuttering like a failing heart. Consultants. That would have been right after first contact, when humanity was still proving its worth to the Galactic Alliance. Correct, Kithrix confirmed, though their involvement was limited, purely advisory. Sarah's fingers traced the edges of the crude computer system she'd discovered. Something wasn't adding up. Advisory, but they designed these tunnels. Tunnels that only a human could navigate effectively. That's not coincidence, that's foresight. The station shuddered again, more violently this time. Warning systems blared in 3 different alien languages before finally switching to English. Sarah's eyes widened as she noticed something in the pattern of system failures. Chief, patch me through to the main engineering display. I need to see the overall failure pattern. The holographic display sprang to life in front of her, showing cascading system failures across the station. To the alien engineers, it probably looked like chaos, random systems failing in no discernible order. But Sarah saw something else. It's a pattern, she breathed. Look at the way the failures are spreading. It's not random at all. It's following the Fibonacci sequence. This isn't sabotage. It's an activation sequence. Fibonacci. Kithrix's mandibles clicked in confusion. The primitive mathematical pattern. Primitive but fundamental. Sarah corrected, her mind racing. It appears throughout nature on Earth. Our ancestors recognized it long before we had advanced mathematics, and someone's using it to wake something up. She turned her attention back to the crude computer system. Its simplicity suddenly made sense. It wasn't meant to destroy, but to bypass. To speak to something old, something that predated the station's current systems. Director, Sarah called out, these human consultants 30 years ago. What exactly were they consulting on? What was here before Nexus 7? The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken tension. Finally, Director Zixtel spoke, their crystalline form dimming slightly. This station was built on the remains of an ancient human outpost, one that predated first contact by several centuries. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. We were here before. Humanity had reached this far, and we forgot. She shook her head, focusing on the immediate problem. The outpost, what happened to its systems? They were deemed primitive and incompatible, Kithrix responded. The outpost's core was sealed and new systems were built around it. The human consultants advised on how to safely contain any remaining active systems. Sarah laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the maintenance tunnel. They didn't advise you on containing it. They built in a way to wake it up. All of this, the sabotage, the old tech, the human-sized tunnels. It's not an attack. It's a rescue mission. She turned to the crude computer system with new understanding. It wasn't a tool of destruction, but a key designed to interface with something ancient, something that had been waiting patiently beneath layers of alien technology. "The station's not failing," she announced, fingers flying over the antiquated keyboard. "The old human systems are trying to integrate with the new ones, but the quantum tech can't handle the irregularity of the old programming. It's like trying to teach poetry to a calculator." "Can you stop it?" Director Zixtal demanded. Sarah shook her head. "Stopping it would be worse. These systems, primitive as they seem to you, were designed to adapt and survive. They're not trying to destroy the station. They're trying to save it from something we don't even know about yet." The station's lights flickered again, but this time Sarah recognized the pattern. Not random power failures, but an attempt at communication. The old systems were trying to talk, using a language only a human would understand. "I need full access to the station's controls," she said, her voice firm. "Not through the quantum systems. Direct, hardwired control, like my ancestors would have used." "Impossible," Kithrix began, but Sarah cut him off. "Chief, in about 2 hours, this station is either going to tear itself apart trying to reconcile two incompatible systems, or we're going to learn why those human engineers 30 years ago thought it was so important to leave us a way back in. Your choice." As she waited for their response, Sarah placed her hand on the ancient console. Somewhere, deep beneath layers of advanced alien technology, humanity's past was reaching out to its future, and she was the only one who could understand what it was trying to say. The human element. After what felt like an eternity of alien bureaucratic resistance, Sarah finally gained direct access to the station's systems. Her makeshift control center was a strange hybrid of ancient human technology and advanced alien interfaces, cables snaking between eras like bridges across time. "Quantum core stability at 17%, Kithrix reported, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "The integration attempts are becoming more aggressive." Sarah's fingers danced across both modern and ancient keyboards. The station's systems displayed on her jury-rigged screens showed two distinct patterns: the precise, mathematically perfect operations of the quantum systems, and the more irregular, almost organic patterns of the old human tech. "Look at this," she said, pointing to where the patterns intersected. "The old systems aren't failing to integrate. They're deliberately introducing chaos into the quantum processes. They're trying to make the perfect imperfect." Director Zixtal's crystalline form shimmered with confusion. "Imperfection as a goal. That seems human," Sarah finished. "Exactly. Our ancient systems were designed to handle irregularity, to adapt to the unexpected. Your quantum systems are too perfect. They can't handle natural variation." A new alarm blared, and Sarah watched as another section of the station's systems began to shift. But now she could see the pattern beneath the chaos. The old human systems weren't attacking. They were teaching. It's like, she searched for an analogy they might understand, like trying to teach a quantum computer to appreciate jazz. The notes aren't random. They're intentionally irregular. There's structure in the chaos. She pulled up the original construction plans for the human outpost, overlaying them with the current station schematics. "Look here. The old station was designed with deliberate irregularities. Slight variations in power flow, minute differences in structural support, things your sensors would read as errors. But why?" Kithrix demanded. "Why introduce inefficiency into perfect systems?" Sarah smiled. "Because the universe isn't perfect. Space throws chaos at us constantly. Radiation spikes, gravitational anomalies, dark matter interactions. The old systems were designed to bend, not break. To adapt, not fail." As if to prove her point, A massive power surge rippled through the station. The quantum systems tried to compensate with mathematical precision, but the surge followed no predictable pattern. Sections began to fail. Quantum core stability at 12%. An Arxian engineer reported, their crystalline form clouding with stress. We cannot maintain perfect balance. Then stop trying, Sarah commanded. She pulled up the ancient interface, its simple LED displays showing the same information in a radically different way. The old systems are trying to teach the new ones how to dance. She began typing, using the crude keyboard to input commands that would have seemed nonsensical to the quantum systems. The ancient human computers responded, their patterns becoming more pronounced. "What are you doing?" Director Zixtal demanded as the station's lights flickered in an irregular rhythm. "I'm introducing controlled chaos," Sarah explained, not taking her eyes off the screens. The quantum systems are trying to maintain perfect efficiency, but that's exactly what's killing them. They need to learn to adapt, to be imperfect. "Impossible," Kithrix stated. "Our systems are designed for perfection. And that's why they're failing," Sarah countered. "The universe isn't perfect. Humanity learned that lesson centuries ago, apparently right here on this station. These old systems, they're not just backup systems. They're a lesson we left for ourselves." She pulled up another screen, showing the station's power distribution. "Look, where the systems are allowing for variation, they're stabilizing. Where they're fighting to maintain perfection, they're failing." The pattern was becoming clear now. The ancient human systems weren't trying to take over. They were trying to teach the quantum systems how to survive in an imperfect universe. Quantum core stability rising, the Arxian engineer reported, surprise evident in their crystalline chimes. 20%, 25, 30%. Sarah nodded. The quantum systems are learning. They're beginning to understand that sometimes the most efficient solution isn't the perfect one. It's the one that can adapt. She turned to Director Zixtal and Kithrix. Those human engineers 30 years ago, they didn't just design these tunnels for maintenance. They built them as a pathway back to this lesson. They knew someday the station would need to remember what humanity had learned centuries ago. Perfection is the enemy of survival. The station's lights stabilized, but now they pulsed with a slightly irregular rhythm, like a heartbeat. The quantum drives hummed, but the sound was no longer the perfect tone it had been. It had become something more organic, more alive. Core stability at 60% and rising, the Arxian reported. The systems are adapting. Sarah sat back in her chair, watching as ancient human wisdom taught advanced alien technology how to survive. "Sometimes," she said softly, "the most advanced solution is remembering what we learned in the beginning." But as the station's systems found their new balance between perfection and adaptation, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end of the message. The ancient human outpost had awakened for a reason, and she had a feeling they were about to find out why. Imperfectly perfect. As the station's systems settled into their new rhythm, Sarah noticed something strange in the data streams. The ancient human computers weren't going dormant. They were becoming more active, but in a different way. "There's more," she announced, studying the patterns. The system's integration wasn't the message. It was just preparing us to receive it. The crude display flickered, and characters began scrolling across the screen. Not in modern standard, but in ancient ASCII text. Sarah leaned forward, her heart racing as she translated. "To the inheritors of Station Deep Space Beta," she read aloud. "If you're reading this, humanity has finally returned to the stars." The alien engineering team gathered around her makeshift console, watching as humanity's past spoke to its future. "This station was our furthest reach," Sarah continued reading. "Built in 2157, before the great collapse that sent humanity back to Earth. We knew we would return someday, but we also knew others might find this place first." "The great collapse," Kithrix clicked questioningly. "A dark period in our history," Sarah explained. When our first attempts at interstellar civilization failed, most of our records were lost, or so we thought. She turned back to the screen, where more text was appearing. We integrated our systems with those who would come after us, not to control, but to preserve something vital, the knowledge of what lies beyond. The station's main display suddenly activated, showing a star map that made the alien engineers gasp. It showed regions of space far beyond the Galactic Alliance's current exploration range. We mapped them. Sarah read, her voice trembling. The dark spaces, the quiet zones, the places where perfect systems fail and only adaptable ones survive. This station sits at the edge of what you know. Beyond lies what we discovered. Director Zixel's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. These readings, they show gravitational anomalies orders of magnitude beyond our charts. Perfect systems cannot survive there. Sarah continued reading. We learned this at great cost. The regions beyond require technology that can adapt, that can embrace chaos and uncertainty, like the station's systems now have learned to do. The star map zoomed in on a particular region, showing swirling patterns of dark matter and gravitational eddies that defied the neat classifications of modern stellar cartography. We left this message not just for humanity, but for any who would venture beyond. Sarah read, "The perfect is the enemy of the possible. The future belongs not to those who can calculate every variable, but to those who can dance with the unknown." Thrix's mandibles clicked rapidly as he studied the data. These regions, our quantum systems, would be useless there, but the hybrid systems we've just created would work perfectly. Sarah finished, or rather, imperfectly enough to survive. The final message scrolled across her screen. To those who find this, we offer not just warning, but invitation. We mapped the chaos, built the foundations, and waited for those who would understand. Now it's your turn to venture into the dark, not with perfect systems, but with adaptable ones. The greatest discoveries lie where perfection fears to tread. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just reached this far and failed. They had discovered something so important that they left it waiting, preserved in systems simple enough to survive centuries, yet sophisticated enough to teach their successors what they would need to survive. Director Zixel turned to Sarah, their crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. "It seems, Engineer Chen, that we owe humanity a great debt, not just for today's lessons, but for preparing us for tomorrow's challenges." Sarah stood, placing her hand on the ancient console that had bridged centuries to deliver its message. We didn't fail when we fell back to Earth, she realized. We were just adapting, learning what we would need for the next phase of exploration. "The Galactic Alliance Council will need to be informed," Thrix stated. "These regions beyond our space need both of us," Sarah finished. "Your advanced technology and our primitive wisdom. Perfect systems working in harmony with adaptable ones." She smiled. Like jazz, the station's lights pulsed with their new, slightly irregular rhythm, like a heartbeat marking the beginning of something new. The ancient human outpost had awakened not to warn them of danger, but to invite them to adventure. Beyond the familiar space lanes and well-mapped stars lay a frontier that would require both the precision of quantum computing and the adaptability of human ingenuity. "Chief," Sarah said, turning to Kithrix, "I think we're going to need more human engineers. And maybe," she patted her toolkit, "a few more primitive tools." The station hummed around them, its perfect quantum heart now beating in sync with ancient human wisdom, ready to guide them into the chaos that lay beyond. It was a symphony of old and new, of precision and adaptation, of perfection and possibility. And somewhere in the dark spaces between the stars, discoveries waited for those who were imperfect enough to find them.